Hey everybody, I will not be in today or tomorrow, so I just wanted to go over what you will be working on for Thursday and Friday, December 3rd and 4th. This is, again, we're under Unit 7, so we're still in genetics. We've talked about simple inheritance, we've talked about monohybrid crosses, dihybrid crosses, we've talked about incomplete dominance. The last class period, you should have worked on a genetics corn lab. One of the days I wasn't there, so if you had any confusion on this corn lab or you didn't complete it, don't stress out about it. As soon as I get back, we'll go over it together. But you should have taken this dihybrid cross learning check. I've graded some, but not all of them, so just bear with me while I get those graded. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going over the rest of non-Mendelian genetics. We're going to be doing a sex-linked practice, and then we're also going to go over pedigrees and what those are. Let's see. And so here's the sex links practice that we're going to be working on once we go over the notes. So let's go back. When you open up this PowerPoint, we've already done the first 11 slides, right? This is where we talked about incomplete and codominance, so, and polygenic traits. So, Mendel was like, hey, you can either be tall or short, purple or white, and then everybody else was like, cool, what about humans? Like, it's more complicated than that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is multiple alleles. And when we say multiple alleles, we've been saying like you can either have an A or a big A or a little a. But sometimes genes have more than one allele. And a really good example of that is your blood type. So examples of multiple alleles include the human blood type, in which there are 3 possible alleles for the blood type gene, A, B, O, and you can be A positive, A negative, AB positive, AB negative, B positive, and so on and so forth, right? So there's 3 alleles that influence that specific gene or phenotype. So what I would write down, and if you need to pause this right here, what I would write down is multiple alleles means that there are more than one allele that influences a genotype. That's the important part. Again, multiple alleles means that there's more than one allele or more than 2 alleles that influences a person's genotype. So if we looked at a real life problem, if we looked at a real life problem here, solving genetic problems with multiple alleles, so these are different types of rabbits, right? And some of their phenotype patterns, their fur patterns, are multiple alleles. So here's all of the types of alleles, capital C, CCH, CH, and then just C. This C is called the wild type, and it's brown fur. The chinchilla is black typed white fur. The Himalayan is white fur with a black nose, paws, ears, and tail. And then 2 little C's indicates an albino. So if you're homozygous for these alleles, this is what you're going to get. However, we know that it's not that simple, right? You can be heterozygous. You could have one of these capital C's and one CCH, or you could have CH and C, or big C, little c, or little c, CCH, right? There's a bunch of different combinations. And that's when we need to look at this table over here. This tells us what is dominant to what. So capital C is the most dominant fur pattern. So if I have a capital C anywhere in my genotype, I'm going to be this brown fur. Chinchilla, the CCH, is recessive only to wild type. So that means if CCH is paired with the wild type, then the wild type is going to show. But if CCH is paired with CH or C, it's going to be the dominant one. The only allele it's recessive to is this capital C here, the wild type. CH Himalayan is only dominant to albino. So if CH is paired with the chinchilla or the wild type, then it's going to show up chinchilla or wild type in the phenotype. But if the CH is paired with the C, then it'll look like a Himalayan. And of course, albino being the only recessive gene, the only way you're going to get an albino rabbit is if you have two Cs. So all this is saying is there's multiple multiple alleles now that we have to take into consideration. It's not just one is dominant and one is recessive. It's like 3 or 4, and allele 1 is completely dominant. Allele 2 is only recessive to allele 1. Allele 3 is recessive to alleles 2 and 1, and then allele 4 is recessive to all of them. Again, if at any point you need to pause the video and go back, please do so. All right, so here is what a cross of that would look like. When you take the two genotypes, again, you're splitting them down the middle. So I'm going to take this CH and I'm put it in one box and a C in another box. This should be super similar to you all. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to divide this one here again. The complicated part about this, once we get them all filled in, is just remembering what's dominant to what. So for like this one, CCH, CH, I know that CH is dominant only to albino, excuse me, and CCH is recessive only to C. So that means that CCH is going to be dominant to CH. So this phenotype here would be chinchilla because this CCH is dominant to CH. CCHC, albino is completely recessive, that little c, so this one would also be a chinchilla. CHCH is easy because they're the same, so that'd be Himalayan. And again, we have one little recessive albino allele paired with the Himalayan. And if we read this, Himalayan is dominant to the albino. So this would also be a Himalayan colored rabbit. Another example of this, but in humans, is sickle cell disease. It's a genetic disorder that can be found among individuals with African descent. There is a mutation with the hemoglobin. If you remember, when we talked about point mutations, sickle cell anemia was when we messed up that 6th amino acid. When referring to individuals that are heterozygous for a genetic disorder, we call them carriers. So a carrier is going to be somebody with the dominant gene, making sure that they don't, that sickness is not expressed, but they do carry that recessive allele, meaning if they were to get together with somebody who also has that recessive allele, then they could potentially have offspring that inherits those two recessive alleles, and the phenotype, the disease is expressed. So over here we've got mom and dad, and you'll notice that both of them are heterozygous. They both have a big R and a little r. If we were to do a Punnett square, we would see that the ratio is 1:1. So one homozygous dominant, not even a carrier, doesn't need to worry about passing it on. Two offspring that are heterozygous. So they're carriers. They're not affected by the disease, but they carry the gene for the disease. And then lastly, we have that 25% chance of being homozygous recessive, which means not only do you carry both alleles for the disease, but you will experience the effects of that disease. Traits can follow more than one pattern. Blood typing is an example of this. In humans, the ABO blood group is determined by one gene and 3 possible alleles. However, there's actually 4 different blood types, right? You can be A, B, O, AB, and then you can be positive or negative of either of those. There are 4 resulting blood types because type A and type B are both codominant. So if you inherit 2 A's from your mom and from your dad, then you're type A. But if you inherit an A or a B, then you're AB. The kicker is that O is recessive. So if you inherit an A and an O from your parents, you're still type A. If you inherit a B and an O from your parents, you're still type B. The only time you're type O with your blood is if you inherit two O alleles from your parents. And there are a lot of questions about blood types throughout the EOC, so this is definitely something that you don't really need to know about the antigens and the antibodies that attach to the blood cells. What this is trying to explain to you is that if I'm type A and I give the blood cell, if I'm type A and I need blood, like if I'm in an accident and I need blood in my system because I'm losing too much, if I'm not given type A, the antibodies that are located in my system will fight off a different blood type, which is why it's important to know your blood type. And then this again is just showing you the antibodies. Group O does not have antigens on its surface, therefore it's the universal donor. So if you have type O blood type, you should definitely consider donating blood when you can, because it doesn't matter whether somebody's A, B, or AB, your blood is universal. Okay, so this is asking us to solve for blood types. The letter I stands for immunoglobulin, which relates to the antibody and the antigens. So I might have a problem like this that comes up on a test. So let's look at it together. A mother with blood type O gives birth to a baby. The father has blood type AB. What are the possible blood types that the child could have? So remember, O is completely recessive. So the only way mom can be O is if she has two recessive alleles over here. So I know to put those two on the top of the box. Dad is AB. So and remember, they're codominant. So one I for hemoglobin A and hemoglobin B. Then I'm going to cross them like normal. And remember, O is recessive. So if I have this O gene here paired with hemoglobin A, then the baby's phenotype probability is going to be 50% type A blood and 50% type B blood. All right, so that's all multiple alleles. And I realize my video is at 12 minutes. And this recording only lets me go to 15. So I'm going to stop this recording here, and then I'll start another one to go over sex-linked genes. So that'll be the next thing you watch.